Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week having a little bit of a crisis with my guitar rig. Every now and then, a piece of gear comes along that has me wondering whether my usual rig, two 100-watt heads, two 1x12 speaker cabinets, both fitted with the EV12L speakers, probably the heaviest speaker known to man, a fairly sizable pedal board in a pretty big flight case, may be slightly excessive, maybe. Now, one such piece of gear that really has me doubting myself all over again is the new Fender Pro Reverb, which, if you saw last week's episode of Friday Fretworks, you'll know I've been getting a hell of a lot of use out of recently. But every time I do talk myself into the idea of downsizing my rig, I very quickly talk myself out of it again, playing in a pretty loud band with an even louder drummer, and if I want to get any real use out of a loud, clean sound, I need headroom, and thus I need loud, invariably quite heavy amplifiers. That said, this amp has been seriously impressive over the last few weeks, so I've talked myself into giving it at least one more go. And although I don't have a rehearsal this week, that's next week unfortunately, I thought this week would be a good opportunity to put together a new pedal board, in essence a condensed version of my main board, and try out this amp with it to see how I get along and see whether it is going to prove successful in a real world scenario. First up, I've chosen the Jackson Audio Fuzz. Now, Fuzz is one of those effects that I actually get a hell of a lot of use out of, but probably isn't an effect that I'm widely associated with. The reason I've chosen this one over any of my other Fuzz pedals is the EQ section and the ability to really tweak it. The Pro Reverb can be a little bit spiky in the top end, especially with a fuzz face running into it, so the ability to really fine-tune and tweak your sound with this pedal could prove absolutely invaluable. Next up, it'll be no surprise to see one of my mainstay pedals, the Snouse Black Box, albeit in the Arctic Black, white, limited edition version that Josh was kind enough to send me a little while ago. I'm a huge fan of the original 1990s Marshall Bluesbreaker, and this is undoubtedly the best recreation I've ever played, albeit having ironed out some of the kinks of the original. It's worth mentioning as well, the extra dip switches really give you that ability to fine-tune your sound, although I must say I've never really used them. It's just one of those pedals that sounds fantastic straight out the box. Next up, we have a new addition in the shape of the VS Audio Blackbird, a new pedal that has really impressed me in recent weeks. It's designed to emulate different eras of Fender amplifiers, and I'm going to be using it in its high gain mode with the increased mid-range, more typical of those early 60s brown face amplifiers. Anything that really helps round out the mid-range in silver face Fenders, as with this Pro Reverb, is going to be definitely helpful. Lastly, in the drive section, we have the brilliantly named Angry Rhubarb by Redbeard Effects. Relatively new out, but I've chosen to include it here not only because it's an incredible sounding overdrive pedal, but because it is immensely versatile. It's a paradynamic overdrive, which, don't worry, I didn't know what that meant either. Essentially means you can take a very surgical approach to which frequencies you really want to boost, as well as having control over whether the overdrive comes pre or post EQ, or both. Having the pedal that really helps you fine-tune the sound of the pedal to the amp, and not necessarily about having to worry about doing the other way around, is going to be incredibly helpful, especially if I'm looking for this board to cover a hell of a lot of ground. And last but not least, undoubtedly the brains of the operation, the Line 6 HX Stomp. Now this was actually on my main board until very recently, until it was usurped by its bigger brother, the HX Stomp XL, purely for the added functionality of extra foot switches, but is a seriously impressive little pedal that really packs a punch. No end of weird and wonderful sounds that I wouldn't have access if I wasn't using a multi-effects. Actually going to be using primarily just one preset here for trem or harmonic tremolo, cave reverb and a tape delay. But obviously having the capacity to cycle through different presets gives me access to a world of sounds that I just wouldn't have otherwise. Now obviously the true test of this rig is going to be next week in a live scenario at rehearsal with Cardinal Black, but in the meantime I thought it'd be a good idea to take you on a bit of a meandering, maybe self-indulgent sonic exploration, and for some reason, just to warn you, it does get a little bit shoegazy, or as close as I can get to anyway. So there you have it. As I said, there's not a great deal to be learned from this until I can really put it through its paces in the scenario of which it is intended to be used. But it'd be interesting to see whether this is something that realistically could take the place of my much bigger rig with all that extra gear, all that extra power and headroom that I've become so accustomed to using. I shall definitely give it a blast next week and report back, let you know how I get on. In the meantime though, I'm going to play you out with a quick clip from my full rig just to give you some context of what I may or may not be losing. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching Friday Fretworks. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, I'll see you soon.